This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, News Services Division of All India Radio presents a special program on Vijay Divas.
December 16th is a monumental day in the history of world politics, when in just a span of 13 days, a war was fought and a sovereign nation, Bangladesh, was born. A war which changed the geopolitics of South Asia and witnessed surrender of 93,000 Pakistani soldiers. A war which unveiled the real face of Pakistan and the atrocities it inflicted on its own people in erstwhile East Pakistan. The 1971 war was a fallout of the oppressive political and economic policies of West Pakistan towards East Pakistan, which caused unimaginable human sufferings, leading to the exodus of more than 10 million refugees into India. The military option was exercised by India only when all political and diplomatic efforts to resolve the issue failed. 2020 marks a special place in the chronicles of Bangladesh, as it is also the birth centenary year of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, father of nation of Bangladesh.
The series of events leading up to an all-out war triggered by unprovoked airstrikes by Pakistan on Indian air bases on 3rd of December 1971 began with the decision of the Pakistan Army to conduct elections in the country in the December of 1970. In 1970, the Pakistan Army decided to step down from power and announced elections. The Awami League under its leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman swept the polls in East Pakistan, but the military junta was unwilling to transfer power to him. In a historic address at the Raman Racecourse in Dhaka in early 1971, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman promised them a new country, a sovereign state, a place where there would be no differential treatment meted out to the Bangla populace.
এবারের সংগ্রাম স্বাধীনতার সংগ্রাম। ভাইরা আমার, 25 তারিখে অ্যাসেম্বলি কল করেছে, রক্তের দাগ শুকায় নাই। আমি 10 তারিখে বলে দিয়েছি যে ওই শহীদের রক্তের উপর যে পাড়া দিয়ে আজ কৃষিতে মুজিবুর রহমান যোগদান করতে পারে না। জয় বাংলা।
Mukti Bahini, or the Mukti Forge, with an aim to realize the dream of a sovereign Bangla nation, was formed to follow up the dream of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The uprising in East Pakistan sent panic waves to the West Pakistan, which appointed Lieutenant General Tikka Khan as the administrator for the East Pakistan. Lieutenant General Tikka Khan organized a brutal crackdown in East Pakistan and is considered to be the chief architect of the Operation Searchlight. Mukti Bahini, along with the support of common populace, controlled large areas of the country in the waterlogged countryside after Bangabandhu's call. The military reorganized itself after the monsoon and by September 1971 had reclaimed all the territory. The freedom fighters took refuge in India. They crossed the border and took shelter in India. It was during this time that skirmishes between the Border Security Force and the Pakistani Army began. Steadily, both countries began inching towards a war. Lieutenant General Jagdeep Singh Arora, who was to be later in charge of operations in East Pakistan in 1971, recalls.
The planning was done in good time because we had the time. And the second thing is that we realized that unless we achieve success in the shortest possible time, the United Nations and the other major nations would like to try us from carrying on fighting as a ceasefire rather than giving us time to have proper victory. We didn't want anything less than victory. I evolved that we should be able to surprise and we should also be able to have mobility. Now the communications were very sparse.
Indian Army registered victory at the Battle of Boira even before the war had officially begun. On 21st November, fierce brigade battles were fought at Boira in the western sector, Hilli in the northwestern sector, Akhaura in the eastern sector, and Sylhet in the northeastern sector. The war officially began on the 3rd of December when Pakistan attacked forward Indian air bases. The attempt went in vain. The then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, addressed the nation at midnight. The Indian Air Force retaliated and attacked Tezgaon and Kurmitola air bases the same night, causing heavy damage. Air Marshal H.C. Dewan, who was among those who planned India's retaliatory Air Force response, says,
The Air Force bombed each and every airfield, whether in use or out of use, in Pakistan, East Pakistan. And every airfield was immobilized. Once it was immobilized, they were just not able to take off. We dared them, more or less, to really fly over some of their military airfield, which was primarily in Dhaka, Tezgaon, but they did not come up because they realized that the Air Force was quite superior to them.
The erstwhile Soviet Union stood firmly with India and vetoed resolutions at the United Nations Security Council calling for ceasefire. On the other hand, Indian forces were marching ahead in East Pakistan, and by the 5th of December, Dorshana, Thakurgaon, Komolpur and Akhauda had fallen. The Indian Air Force continued massive round-the-clock attacks on Dhaka.
The Air Force promised us to give favorable air situation, which they achieved within the first 36 to 48 hours, and kept the enemy practically grounded. And they were able to give us certain amount of support to make up heavy artillery, and because it was not possible on these byways to be able to very heavy weapons either.
The most crucial planning was involved in blockading East Pakistan from both sea and air, as this ensured cutting off additional supplies to the Pakistani forces. India utilized its marine stealth, and INS Vikrant stood firmly in the Bay of Bengal. Vice Admiral Mihir Kumar Roy, who played a leading role in the war, said,
In 71, we had the blockade. We prevented any of the ships and prisoners moving out by the khals, etc., because we had aircraft that operated at night. And when I spoke to Admiral Sharif when he was a prisoner in Fort William, and he said, I was deaf, I was blind, because day and night the Navy hammered us in all the inside khals, etc., leading to the seas.
The 1971 war is also remembered as one of the shortest duration wars which changed the geopolitics of South Asia. Within 3 days of the declaration of the war, Indian forces were able to completely ground the Pakistani Air Force. And recognition came in the Indian Parliament by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi.
The people of Bangladesh battling for their very existence and the people of India fighting to defeat aggression now find themselves partisans in the same cause. The government of India have, after the most careful consideration, decided to grant recognition to
The Eastern Command, which was planning and executing the operation on the ground, ensured that the war must not go for long. Any attempt by the Pakistani forces to retreat was thwarted.
Then, Chief of Eastern Command, Lieutenant General J.F.R. Jacob.
We planned the campaign in such a manner so that we'd move fast and we would suffer the minimum casualties. To do this, we at Eastern Command selected our main objective to be Dhaka, and we then selected subsidiary objectives to assist in this. They were not towns, but communication centers and command and control centers. For example, in the western sector, we selected Magura and Faridpur. In the eastern sector, we selected Chandpur and Daudkandi.
Anticipating forthcoming defeat, East Pakistan Governor asked President Yahya Khan to start negotiations. By this time, the Indian forces reached Meghna River at Ashuganj, led by General Bain Gonzalez. Dhaka was not far. On the western front, Pakistan intensified their attacks in order to divert the forces. The response by the Indian forces was strong enough to wreak enemy both psychologically and militarily. Indian missile boats set ablaze Karachi harbour on 9th of December. The famous attack was a major psychological blow, as Vice Admiral Mihir Roy recalls.
We took no one's permission, but missile Karachi, and more than Karachi, the Kamari oil tanks, which really made the shortage of fuel. Besides that, it broke the morale of the Pakistan Navy and the people in Karachi.
On the eastern front, the Indian forces crossed Meghna River after a 36-hour-long airlift operation, as the bridge over it was destroyed by the retreating forces. The local population and the Mukti Bahini assisted the Indian forces with boats.
We had, with Mukti Bahini, been able to achieve favorable situation as far as the civilian population is concerned. So wherever we went, they were there ready to help us. Whether they are rickshaws or they are country boats for crossing river, rickshaws for carrying our stuff.
Pakistan planned to use its US-made submarine PNS Ghazi to attack INS Vikrant. Outsmarting their sinister plan, the Indian Navy was successful in hunting down the submarine near the coast of Visakhapatnam. Vice Admiral Prakash, who was on INS Vikrant, said,
Ship like aircraft carrier is a very big target,
And in fact, the whole honor of the Indian Navy was crystallized in this one target. I received message straight away that Ghazi sunk. Now it was a tremendous relief.
On the other hand, on land as well, the Indian forces displayed great tactical and military acumen. The 2nd Para Battalion para-dropped in the Tangail area on the afternoon of 11th December. This ensured that the Pakistani forces in the Maimin Singh sector couldn't reinforce Dhaka. Once again, the Mukti Bahini and the local population played crucial role in making this operation successful.
The 7th American Fleet was approaching the Bay of Bengal. It became imperative to finalize the fall of Dhaka. To achieve that, I felt that I must help the army in a bigger way and to quicken up the whole process of marching towards Dhaka. The closest that the army echelon or the army advanced troops were, they were in the north. So we had used this paradrop in the north of Dhaka.
10 days into the war and on 12th of December, Pakistani troops started to surrender in various sectors. By then, Dhaka was full of Indian troops who moved from Tangail and Narsingdi. Then came the historic broadcast by Army Chief General Sam Manekshaw on All India Radio, asking General Niazi to lay down arms. He assured them of treatment as per the Geneva Convention.
The number of paratrooping forces swelled as time passed. Palping no point of return, Pakistani President Yahya Khan authorized East Pakistan governor to take all steps to end the fighting. The governor resigned after a crucial meeting. 2 days before the final surrender, General Niazi went to the U.S. Consul General to send a message to General Manekshaw asking for a ceasefire and safety of his troops. General Manekshaw agreed and asked the Pakistani army to surrender to his advancing troops. General Jacob on the developments.
As we landed, I was received by the Pakistan Army Chief of Staff, plus there were the foreign press, the whole lot of them, as well as the United Nations representatives who offered us their good services to negotiate. I felt that they had no role in the surrender, so I thanked them, and I then proceeded on towards Niazi's headquarters. We had a lot of trouble in reaching Niazi's headquarters. Fighting was still going on in the bits of the town. We could hear the firing, and Mukti Bahini stopped us, and they wanted to attack Niazi's headquarters. I told them Niazi was about to surrender, and there was no point in doing so.
The instrument of surrender was signed at the Dhaka racecourse at 4:31 in the evening on the 16th of December. General Jacob arranged the surrender formalities. General Jagjit Singh Arora, who took the surrender, talks about that memorable event.
I decided that we take the surrender in public view. So that's why the surrender was taken on the race course. And the public has gathered there in absolutely large numbers, which has had a tremendous effect on public.
India announced unilateral ceasefire on the Western Front on the morning of 16th December. The war was over and a new nation was born. Bangladesh had come into being in the East. On 12th of January 1972, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was sworn in as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Indian forces in their fight for humanity fulfilled the dreams of millions of Bangla people. In the war, Pakistan lost half of its navy and a quarter of its air force. Today, a grateful nation remembers over 3,500 Indian war heroes who fought valiantly and laid down their lives in that war. The then Eastern Command head, General Jacob, paid glowing tributes to the brave hearts with a sublime poetry.
What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns, only the stuttering rifles' rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers, nor bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling for them from sad shires.
You are listening to a special program on Vijay Divas. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.